Cool. Everyone wants to be an astronaut or a banker. Did anyone know, like, from the very earliest of days that they wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Fresh.
Yes.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I actually, I don't know, probably by 4th, 5th grade, probably knew that I was going to be in business from the beginning. Not knowing what, but it just felt like I had a couple interests. I like computers and I like business, and when I was deciding on what to go into, it kind of became apparent that while I like computers, I like business and money more. So it was kind of a way to try to do both, but really went into business, and that's where it was.
Okay, great. Everyone take a crack at that if you have a response.
Yes, my parents are still disappointed I'm not a doctor. But I didn't know what it was quite called, and when I finished graduate school, I refused to do postdocs and started a company because I finally figured out exactly what it was I wanted to do.
And I actually went to school to be an architect, graduated from architectural school, and decided 1 year out of school that I was smart enough to be a consultant to architects, which is a bit bombastic, but it was successful. I had a successful company and then went on to form other companies on a fairly serial basis. So I think I just was not real employable. I was more...
The hallmark.
I got my break selling jawbreakers, actually, in 6th grade, and I would buy them for 75 cents and sell them for $2, and I was making $34 a day at 6th grade, so that really got me hooked. My father had a business, and most of the things I learned about business I learned from him, except his failed, and so he taught me all the things not to do. But I made my first money on the web, actually, at like 12 years old, basically in the Usenet groups, if anybody remembers those, finding candidates for placement in companies. And I really got hooked and then went right into the business at 17, building websites for other people. It took me about 10 years before I realized that it made more sense to do my own companies and own startups, rather than having other people pay me for the work and let them run with it. So now I'm hooked in the startup world.
Okay, great. A lot of you are problem solvers. You see a compelling problem in your environment and you get after a solution. So does anyone want to take a crack at what was the problem they identified specifically that started, the little grain of sand that started the pearl, which is now your company?
Okay.
Mine's kind of easy. I mean, as I said, I had 2 bikes stolen, and both times I went on the internet and said, there has got to be a device like this. So that is kind of a pattern with my companies. Tree in a Box developed because we lived at 8,000 feet elevation in the mountains of New Mexico. We were trying to plant greenhouse trees, and they were just not making it. So we said, what if you try growing from seed? Maybe if you grow a tree from seed at the environment that it's going to grow in, it will survive. And we started doing it, it worked, and we went, wow, wouldn't it be cool if people could do this? So it's kind of just looking at life from the point of view of, I've got a problem here, and I think there's a solution that isn't out there.
Ken, had your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, in 2006 when I left Digimarc, can you guys hear me? I find that.
Yeah, me too.
If you guys remember in 2000, the intelligent agent, the concept that the web would learn everything about you and go find what you like. And I said, in 2006, it's time for this technology. That's not quite it. We have to start small. And I found at a friend's wedding. I learned about the Netflix contest, where Netflix was looking for a better system. We're in the top 2% of the 40,000 teams there. And we saw the market was the mid-market didn't have anything. And so it was just a continued evolution. I had at least 5 or 6 business plans before Fortel. I mean, we were looking at what cars were being bought and sold at and see if you could buy a car in Portland and sell it in Florida, vice versa. Problem is the data was all proprietary, and we were constantly having to write stuff to go get the data. Business models like that, they said, it's not there. But Fortel was the one that said, I think there's something here. And then my good friend Neil liked it, and we joined together and made it happen.
Okay.
So, do you want this back? Or?
Leave it optional, I guess. Paresh, you had your hand up also?
Yeah, so actually what was interesting is probably, aside from where the product ended up, it actually first started out when probably about 3 years ago I walked into a Baskin Robbins in Northeast Portland or Gresham, and I saw that they had calorie information on the menu board for all the ice cream. And I started thinking, I was like, I bet you someday they're going to make us put that on vending machines. And so I started thinking about it, and I was like, how do we do this? Because as a vending machine company, you have to realize that there are, like, say, 4,000 products that can fit into a vending machine. A vending machine company might have 500 products. A truck might have a subset of that of like 100 to 200 products. But any vending machine only has 40 products. The chances of finding two vending machines filled identical are like chances of finding two snowflakes that are the same. It's just not going to happen. The same product in the same order in all the machines. It's just a very complex problem. So on the very surface, it seemed like a simple thing. Just put product information on a vending machine, and then you got to realize that every time the driver is there, product is changing, right? Every time the driver comes, they're putting new stuff in, different things. So how do you manage that? How do you keep that up to date? And I started thinking, if we ever had to do this, it would be a nightmare. And so I started working on a solution as like the only way to do it would be to have a digital solution. But even if you tried to do that, how do you know what's in every machine and how do you account for it to change? So about 2 years ago, and I get some of my smartest ideas, if you will, when I'm sleeping. I woke up one morning and I had an idea. And I started writing it down, and long story short was, we applied for a patent for that, and it was something that basically solved a problem. And so a lot of people say today is like when they see Vendscreen, it's like, that's so obvious. Why hasn't that been done yet? But you realize that in principle it's a very simple thing. Put a screen on a vending machine. But all the under the hood stuff, how do you get the information that's relevant to that machine there? All the transfer of the data and the integration and the sync, that's where the complexity comes in. And that's the problem we solved. Basically just out of, it started with a small thing and it just led to another thing. And then the business model built up from that.
Great.
Just to kind of amp on something you said about, how come that hasn't been done yet. We run into that a lot with what we're doing on the cloud. And what we found is that it's really about timing. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's done everything, and they've tried it in different ways, but the market has to be ready and right at the right time. So the original product that we had started with was for some cloud consultancy customers, and there were a few of them using it, and we'd send out this daily email of their cloud costs, and it broke one day, and suddenly everybody was upset. Where's my daily email? So we realized there was something there, but it was the year before. It was still, the cloud was evolving. It had been around for a year or two, but there wasn't sort of this huge movement happening. There wasn't this, the cloud, it's the savior to everything, and every startup has to be cloud-based. And there were companies doing what we did 2 years ago who just didn't make it. It's like the great example is, there's YouTube wasn't the first video sharing site. They were just rightly timed. So, one of the things we found when we did decide to go all in on this is there was all the events were coming together in a way that made the timing just right for something like this. So I think that's a really interesting concept that I've heard from a lot of entrepreneurs where it's like you can have a great idea, you can have an amazing team, you can have all these things, but if it's not the right time in the market curve, then you don't really go anywhere.
Yeah, that's...
Getting off questions. Sorry,
yeah, no. That's. I think that's an excellent point, and I bet all of us can think of something that was a great idea, but before its time.
Right.
People talk about the Newton as a predecessor to certainly what Apple and smartphones became, but there's a lot of those examples, right? And